So this question does come up a lot. It's asking about if objectives can be achieved without conflict. And even if it doesn't come up exactly as this, it there's other questions which ask you about the objectives conflicting, and it's like a common evaluation point for year 12 macro topics.
Mhm.
It's come up a lot with different wordings. So in the introduction, as always, we're just going to state the four objectives and explain that it's quite difficult to achieve them all at the same time. So let's just start with that. So my introduction. The UK has four main macroeconomic objectives: 2% inflation, economic growth, low unemployment, and a balance of payments on the current account.
Was the payments on the current account the budget?
No, that's about exports and imports.
Okay.
Yeah, people often mix up budget deficit and current account deficit. They're two different. We're going to learn them later anyway. You haven't covered it in detail yet, but a budget deficit and a current account deficit are two different things. A budget deficit is when government spending is bigger than tax revenue,
Mhm.
something that the government are looking to achieve. But for the economy, current account deficit is when imports are bigger than exports.
Cool.
So it's quite difficult to achieve these all at the same time, all of these at the same time, especially, or we can just give an example. For example, economic growth and lower unemployment often leads to
Oh,
these
economic.
greater
Oh, great. Shift in AD, would it be?
uh and then what's the negative consequence of that? Because these are
Oh,
both positives. What's the
higher price levels.
yeah, greater in rate of inflation.
Oh,
Um,
wait.
okay. Yeah, as shown by the Phillips curve.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard
The,
of the Phillips curve?
yeah, I was gonna say I've not heard it.
Okay. But basically, like, to be honest, you don't need to use it, but they often teach it at school. So it's just literally inflation. No, wait, hold on. It's unemployment and inflation. And it just shows this whenever unemployment goes down, inflation gets higher.
Okay.
But it's just explaining this trend. But we know this anyway from our logic and our understanding
Mhm.
of objectives. So let's start with the first paragraph then. Examples and reasons why they are very difficult to achieve without conflict. So if economic growth, so I'm going to state my point first before I start my paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay? My first point was saying that it's difficult to achieve all the objectives without conflict.
Mm.
It is difficult for macroeconomic objectives at the same time. For example, economic growth is when real GDP increases.
Mhm.
This could happen when aggregate demand shifts to the right.
Yeah.
Aggregate demand is the total planned spending in the economy. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and it equals, what does it equal?
Is it consumption plus investment plus government spending? plus net exports, which is exports minus imports.
Good.
Cool.
Cool. What could give me one example of something that could cause AD to shift to the right?
Would it be the government increasing welfare benefits?
Yep. It's one example. They cause of the right shifting over. For example, if they increase spending on welfare benefits, this could lead to some consumers having a greater disposable income. This would lead to an increase in consumer spending.
Hmm.
On top of the increase in consumer spending. Let's expand it further. This will
Yeah.
multiplier effect, won't it?
Yeah.
Cool. What is the multiplier effect?
It's when a original increase in is it initial ejection leads to a larger increase in the future. I know how to explain it better rather than the actual definition.
Yeah, no, you said it right anyway. So, um, as a result, aggregate demand would shift to the right. However, uh, also there is a chance of a positive multiplier effect because the initial increase in AD could lead to further increases in AD. Why would that happen if they increase welfare benefits?
Is it because if the consumers are spending more, the firms will have more money to reinvest into like such as like new jobs, which and that would decrease unemployment. And if more people are employed again, it kind of goes in a cycle where those unemployed people will have more disposable income to spend and then reinvest into the economy.
Yeah, that's good. Pretty much. But the idea is that the government gives certain people money, certain people spend the money, but then businesses profit more. For example, if they go to the cafe, then the cafes earn a bit more money, and whoever owns the cafe or whoever works in the cafe might get more tips, and then they're going to spend more, even if it's a little bit, and it will add up a bit more than what the initial spend was.
Mhm.
Um, However, also, there's one interesting point which we could link into this, which is what is the number one reason that makes the multiplier effect high or low? Do you know?
No.
Do you know what the formula is for the multiplier? Apart from so there's two formulas for the multiplier,
Yeah.
I over G, which is the impact, the change in the real GDP divided by the change in the initial government spending. So the initial change in government spending or initial change AD, the overall change in AD. So that's just the simple multiplier, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also another formula, 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay. So you get the first formula, right?
I've not learned that either, but
Do you get it? It's just like common sense. It's just like,
yeah,
okay,
no, yeah, to get.
if that goes, let's say if that changes by 100 million pounds, and this changes by 150 million pounds, then it's 1.5 is the multiplier. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a simple one. This is more
Mhm.
complicated. So marginal propensity to consume.
Oh, I think I learned this a bit in Upland. They didn't teach us in school, but I remember slightly going over up in Upland.
So MPC stands for marginal propensity to consume.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Is it the like let's say your wage increased by £1 the amount of that pounds you're going to spend.
Wait, give me 1 second, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's carry on. So it's the proportion of an extra £1 that the consumer will spend rather than save. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if how good your maths is, but if that number is very, very low,
Hmm.
then that number is going to be very, very high, and then that number is going to be very, very low. But anyway, that's fine. The point is, if we want the multiplier to be high, we would prefer this to be very high as well.
Cool.
Who do you think, what type of people would you rather give money to if you want them to spend it straight away?
Would it be low income households?
Say again.
Would it be low income households?
That's correct. Because they don't have the stability to save as much. Whereas somebody with a ton of money, if you give them an extra £100, they are just going to add it to their savings. Okay, so by chance, we picked an example of spending on welfare benefits. So it just made me think about this example. So now we can
Okay.
our advantage. So consumers on welfare benefits would have a higher marginal propensity to consume than others. This is the
This is the okay.
then of an extra £1 that the consumer will spend rather than save. Um, this means the multiplier is likely to be high. Multiplier
Mhm.
the government spending is likely to be high. Um, K equals 1/1 minus MPC. Those on benefits will spend their extra disposable income when shopping or at the cafe. And this will increase incomes of local businesses, which uh, would be injected into the economy and spur down consumer spending or business spending. Yeah. I want to link this to a diagram to make my paragraph perfect, and then I'm done. I will just state my point again and explain why it links to this. So what diagram would you draw to illustrate this multiplier effect or this effect of government spending on benefits?
Would it be the multiplier effect diagram?
Yeah, do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's a ADAS diagram or SRAS diagram. And then initial right shift. So you've got a right shift in AD and then a second right shift in AD.
Good. Let's yeah, do you want to just draw that and then we'll
Yeah,
add.
cool.
This diagram shows that aggregate demand increases multiple times, which causes a an increase in price level alongside the increase in economic growth.
Mhm.
This is bad for the economy. Well, this is not ideal because inflation causes cost of living to increase and causes people to have lower disposable incomes, um, which means their living standard could fall
Cool.
unless they ask for higher wages. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, an increase in aggregate demand and economic growth does not always cause an increase in pricing. Can you think about how that could happen? How can AD shift to the right without causing the price level to increase?
Would that be if AS shifted to the right?
What at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good point. I was gonna come to supply side policies next actually, but um let me show you a diagram.
Okay.
What am I thinking here? What's all this about?
Oh, it's that if it's that it's not full employment yet. It's where there's a what's the word?
Yeah. There's unemployment or there's a negative output gap.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah, the way we got showed the negative output gap was a bit different.
okay, there's different ways of illustrating it,
Yeah,
but
this one looks, I think I understand it more now.
basically just aggregate demand is so low, the country is basically the economy is in a recession and aggregate demand
Yeah.
is so low and GDP is so low and unemployment is so high. In those cases, you can spend money, the government can spend money and aggregate demand and economic growth can increase and it wouldn't start causing an increase in price level straight away because resources
Okay.
are so underemployed.
Yeah, yeah, I do remember this, but I think the way they showed us in school, I do remember it now. It was, but this one's a lot more clearer with the Keynesian.
Yeah, exactly. This is way better. So during a recession, there may have been a negative out gap, which is when uh econom actual economic growth, the actual rate of economic growth is lower than the trend rate of economic growth. This is associated with high levels of unemployment. There are lots of resources in the economy which are underemployed or underused,
Hmm.
which means that an increase in aggregate demand will not cause a strain on the available resources and factor production, and this will not cause a strain on the price level. Boom, done. Perfect paragraph, perfect evaluation.
Right. So that would be like a A grade paragraph.
Pretty much, yeah.
Cool.
And then the second side of it is we have to argue the other way. So we argued why they cannot be achieved, although we did give an evaluation, but now we're going to give the other side of the argument, which is
Hmm.
actually can be achieved without conflict. Also, just on this paragraph, I'm going to end it by repeating my words again. Therefore, achieving some of the macro objectives will cause conflict with other objectives. Okay. Just
Yeah.
repeating the words of the question at the beginning and the end of the paragraph. So that way you can write anything in between. The more you write, the better. The more you show off, the better.
Mhm.
The first and last sentence means you're sticking to the question.
Wait, do you have to write a definition for each paragraph?
No,
Or
you don't
like
have to
a,
write any definitions. It's just you have to write in a way that shows your knowledge of.
okay, cool.
When you write something fancy, like if I talk about marginal propensity to consume, I don't want to waffle about it. I want to show off that I fully understand it
Hmm.
because the examiners are looking for your understanding and your knowledge to be good.
Cool. Okay. So would the next one be about economic growth and the one about exports and imports?
Yeah, so Oh wait, we don't need to talk about. No, no. I was going to use, and we're using the other side of the argument. The other side of the argument is that they can be achieved. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it is there is an there is it is still possible to achieve all four macroeconomic objectives without causing any conflict between them. This can only be done through improvements in the supply side. Okay.
Okay.
Supply side policies. So you haven't done this before, right?
I don't think so.
So when you learn it at school, you're going to do fiscal policy, which you're doing now. Then
Mhm.
they teach you monetary policy.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to go on soon
After
because
you're going to
school.
learn supply side policies.
Yeah, cool.
We do all of them. Just make sure you know what they are and the evaluation for all of them.
Mhm.
But we're going to learn supply side policies by doing this anyway.
Okay, great.
Supply side policies are the range of policies. There's so many of them that can be used to increase the productive capacity of
Mhm.
the economy. Okay. So anything that creates more ability, more capacity, more productive potential for us to be able to do more stuff. Yeah.
Uh,
So that includes spending money on education and training,
Mhm.
spending money on infrastructure, or other cool ways like
Oh,
reducing,
so is there anything that boosts, that shifts LRAS or AS?
especially LRS. It has to be LRS actually.
Oh, okay. I think we might have gone over this actually.
Yeah, you might have touched on the factors and then you learn it as supply side policies.
Hmm.
There's other ways as well, but yeah, that's the idea of them. Okay,
Cool. Yeah, I think I do remember it.
cool. So I've already written an example, so we can just go straight into it. Basically, let me just find it. So I said supply side policies are the range of policies that can be used to increase the productive capacity of the economy. There are different types of them. One example is an increase in spending on infrastructure, for example, with HS2 high-speed railway. To this increase in spending, do you know what HS2 is?
Yeah, it was the high speed railway.
It's the thing that makes it very fast to travel from London to Manchester and London to Birmingham and so on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this increase in spending would aim to cause an improvement in transport links around the UK.
Hmm.
This would allow businesses to increase their productivity because the output per worker goes up or the output per hour goes up.
Cool.
That's actually certainly defining productivity to show that I know exactly what it is. As a result,
Hmm.
around the UK would be able to produce more goods and services with the same amount of resources. That can be seen with a right shift in LRAS. I'm actually going to draw that. Can you have a go at drawing that diagram as well? So right shift in LRAS or right shift in the Keynesian AS.
Cool.
So basically, the diagram shows that wherever written about the diagram. Uh, the diagram also shows that, wait, let me just change this a bit because I've done AD and AS. You can either just do the AS shifting right with a
Hmm.
high accurate demand level, or you could do both of them. And you can basically
Okay.
saying that you're achieving Uh, whenever AD goes up, as long as you're accompanying it with supply side policies, you're able to cause that increase in economic growth without causing much of an increase in price level. So that's one
Okay.
thing we should always do whenever we approach full capacity. Yeah.
Hmm.
Did
So
I
what the increase in the
uh,
right shifting
yeah.
AS would lead to a right shifting AD?
So we can either assume if aggregate demand increased beforehand,
Hmm.
also able to increase aggregate supply at the same time, then
Okay.
we could phrase it like that, or we could phrase it as when government spend money on infrastructure, there's a bit of a boost in confidence and a bit of government spending, which leads to aggregate demand increasing, and at the same time, the government spending is on stuff that increases capacity. So a bit of both.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
The diagram shows that aggregate demand increases due to an increase in government spending, such as benefits, which we're talking about in paragraph 1, or on HS2 itself.
Hmm.
Aggregate supply also increases long run average supply, also increases, uh, which means that employment and real GDP increase from Y1 to Y2, but we don't see much of an increase. Overall, this shows it is possible to achieve all four macroeconomic objectives. See, I'm using the same sentence again.
Hmm.
I just want to add one more sentence as well, really quickly. Exports would also could also increase because um, our goods and services, our UK goods and services, become
Okay.
more competitive as firms are more productive. They are able to produce goods and services at a lower cost or of a higher quality. Yeah.
Hmm.
However, the issue of supply side policies is often the substantial opportunity cost and the time lag. £100 billion spent, and also it won't be completed until 2040. Overall, however, supply side policies are the best and only way to achieve all four objectives without causing conflict. That's
Cool.
it. Done.